cameraman now.
Yeah, I got promoted, thank God.
All right, so we just gave Jason a promotion. We just finished our shoot. We're in Demarest, New Jersey, and we have to walk. This is what it means to be a director.
This is my friend Anthony, and I'm Jason, the cameraman. Here was the long walk home we did from New Jersey after shooting an interview for a public access special about the blog. We decided to promote our upcoming specials on YouTube before airing it on various public access stations across New York City. It's funny, Anthony and Ray, like how many myths are out there that we follow that, like, we have no clue where they came from, never really investigated. That's what I love about public access television. Anyone from off the street can produce their own TV show. I remember my interest in public access started with a show called Drinking with Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Thompson. I'm a bartender in Queens right now. I work in Manhattan also. I have a TV show called Drinking with Bob. Would you people wake up? What's next? What's next? What's next? You've already lost! You've already lost!
The concept of the show is turn on the camera, one take, do it, and whatever comes out is you know, if it's airable, we air it.
What's next? I'll tell you what's next. I don't give a damn about Chris Crock, hey? I gotta wake up the freaking morning, do 1,000 videos of this guy crying his freaking eyes out about Britney freaking Spears, how we should treat her good, how we should treat her better. I don't give a damn about Britney Spears. She lives in a $4 million mansion and makes $770,000 a month for doing nothing. I'm supposed to feel bad for her? Why? Because she made a fool out of herself on national television? She makes a fool out of herself every 3 days on national television. Why should this time be any different, okay? I don't give a damn about Britney Spears, and I hope I never see her again. And as far as this guy, Chris Crocker, if I see one more video of this guy, one more freaking video, I'm gonna go nuts! What's next? What's next? What's next?
I'm a middle-class guy. My father was a cop. My mother worked in a grocery store. My brother's a fireman. My other brother's a plumber. My best friend's a cop. I mean, that's all I know.
Bob, first and foremost, is my drinking buddy. And then second, we're, you know, I work on the show with him.
Rosie O'Donnell had a new show. We could have her come in and she's all talking to me or something, you know? Like, how's the show going, right? It's going great! It's not what I heard.
yeah, she's just all, like, sloshed, like a...
Yeah, again, that's good, I like them.
Everything is so produced and managed and corporate, and Bob is the anti-corporate, the anti-management.
And even today, people question me like, how do you do it? Does it cost money? How do you pay for it? It's free. Everybody can do it.
This is an essential part of American democracy, is ensuring that there is public voices, diverse voices, a diversity of views, and in that way, public access plays a critical and increasingly important role in the American media.
What are we looking at?
Wayne's World. These guys, they do their show out of their basement.
Saturday Night Live's Wayne's World brought attention to public access as an electronic soapbox.
Well, it's democracy. What can I say? There's many voices in democracy, and that's why I love cable, is because there's such a variety. I think a lot of people watch public access because it's more interesting, and you never know what you're going to get.
Now that some services have more than 100 channels, this is how some of that airtime is being filled.
Okay, psychedelia is where we are at, dude. But let me tell you, I think gray is the way. So long, sucker.
It's a life kind of thing for kids. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll to extend, but biking is the main thing. That's what.
The Jimi Hendrix Foundation.
The Jimi Hendrix Foundation, what is it?
The programs
that are the most controversial. You know, it's not sexual content. It's more political speech.
Isn't it funny how the whites have to be fired from the jobs, but the blacks and the Jews and the scum third worlders that are destroying this country?
There's going to be an army. We're going to beat you down. We're going to kill you. You're going to be raped, robbed, and murdered because you raped, robbed, and murdered. And you go into slavery for a period of 1,000 years.
If you're watching, communists, faggots, watch out.
These images of public access were clashing with my fond memories of it. Where do we as producers draw the line when it comes to free speech?
People react very passionately to material that they find offensive. And that's a key word, you know, material that's offensive. Because it might be morally offensive, but it's not criminal.
If public access only shows bigots and psychos, then why is free speech so important to access producers? To answer this question, I have to start with the history of public access television. The idea of public access started in Canada with a group named Challenge for Change.
Challenge for Change was a project that was started by the Canadian Film Board, the National Film Board of Canada. And the idea was to try out the new video equipment that had just been developed to see how it could be used to help communities communicate. And George Stoney was one of those hired to do that work.
They brought me to Canada to show students and their staff people how to work with sponsors to continue that work.
To inform the people in Saint-Jacques about their clinic and to involve them in the future of the committee, the citizens felt the need for better communication. But the established media are not accessible to ordinary people, especially the poor. We, therefore, asked ourselves this question: what could happen if the people had the technology of communications in their own hands?
Écoute, on s'aperçoit quand on attend quelques minutes puis ça ne devient pas blanc quand on a oublié d'enlever ça. On l'enlève. Et quand tu appuies avec là, il y a une petite lumière rouge qui commence à l'intérieur et tu vois que tu es en train de filmer.
We wanted to demonstrate what the new Portapacks could do.
Pourquoi la couverture c'est une esquisse?
Non, parce qu'il y a des batteries à l'intérieur et puis le froid empêche les batteries de donner leur plein rendement. Puis à ce moment-là, le travail n'est pas aussi bon.
Vous dites que vous venez au bien-être social pour des verres?
Pour des verres.
Est-ce que le bien-être social fournit quelque chose?
Because you see, before video came along, it was film. And film was very expensive and also required much more professional knowledge.
At the same time, there was a lot of cable being strung in cities in the United States. And George was familiar with that and said, why don't we have a process whereby the cities and towns will be required to have community access to television?
It's a labor viewpoint in San Francisco. A program about home birth in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Beware short agendas, they often turn into long meetings.
Live, gavel-to-gavel coverage of city council meetings in hundreds of cities.
And by the way, we drain this tank of water so that I won't drown.
Making home repairs in Dayton, Ohio. In Roxbury, Massachusetts, it's a program made by teenagers fighting violence in their neighborhood.
One got stabbed, and he was in critical condition.
You see, in this land of free speech, the dying are supposed to go quietly for the sake of the living.
A place to speak out on the AIDS crisis.
So we started in Manhattan, and we also started with something called the Alternate Media Center at NYU.
Stoney co-founded the Alternate Media Center, along with another Canadian filmmaker from Challenge for Change named Red Burns. In 1972, Stoney and Red Burns worked with the FCC to require cable providers to allow channels to be set aside for public use.
And cable companies were at that time looking for material to cause people to subscribe.
It became a selling point to get the monopoly of a city and the rights of way. That's really what public access is.
The commercial interests don't always run parallel to community interests. And when you're telling a story and you have independent voices telling a story, you don't want to be necessarily beholden to commercial interests. If it's about the community, there should be unfiltered, free speech that can happen when there is so much mass media produced that is commercial.
Public access provides an opportunity for many different groups and individuals who otherwise can't hear their voice, can't get their point of view across in the traditional media, to get their point of view across.
ACT UP began in 1987 at the recognition that collective action was needed to fight government indifference to and media misrepresentation of the AIDS crisis.
This is no time for congratulations. This is no time to turn your back. This is no time for circumlocution. This is no time.
It seems that public access can also be used for advocacy, just like our show about the blind. One group that embodies this aspect of public access today is NYFAC.
New York Families for Autistic Children is a service provider agency working with children with developmental disabilities and autism. Good day. Welcome to New York Families for Autistic Children's TV show, Spotlight Autism. My name is Andrew Bauman, and I'll be your host. I'm the parent of a child with autism, and every day is a struggle. Every day is a challenge. Every day is something new. It doesn't matter whether my child was 3, 5, 10, 15, or 18 now. We still struggle every day.
Let's talk about the episode you filmed with Andrew.
My
back
son.
In 2002, your other son.
Yeah.
Wonderful child.
Yeah, my son Andrew. Great opening in that show. Yeah.
He, tell me about that moment. I mean,
I cried after that show. I was in tears after I did that show. Today we have a very, very special guest on the show with us, and I'd like to introduce him. And his name is?
Andrew Bauman.
Andrew Bauman. My name is Andrew Bauman.
My name is Andrew Bauman.
Well, that must mean that you're my
son.
Well, this is my son, Andrew Bauman, and I'm very, very pleased and happy that Andrew could be part of this show and a guest on the show today. And that's how we started talking about siblings. Do you help teach Anthony? Are you sure about that? Because I think you really do.
How? I don't know how. I teach him.
Do you show him different ways to do things? And you're not going to get that from any reporter, because a reporter is cold, calculated, reports a story, facts, stick to the facts, stick to the fact, no emotional attachment. You are most definitely a great brother, and you are a great son, and I am so happy and glad that you agreed to come on the show with me today. I mean, public access is a place where individuals like me and organizations like mine and people that are kind at heart use to get out a message. And that message is hope, that message is education, that message is opportunity, that message is so positive and so full of joy and celebration that we should celebrate the fact that there is a public access.
We've got to work together to protect this valuable resource for communities across the nation, because there's always challenges on the public policy front, on the funding front.
4 bills are under consideration on Capitol Hill to deregulate the cable industry. The desire of phone companies to grab a piece of the cable pie is fueling deregulation, and community cable advocates fear it could be the end for local programming.
Now, not only did public access face stereotypes, it faced imminent death. The major phone companies behind these bills were AT&T, Verizon, and Comcast.
I don't see really how they could have skirted not giving something back to the city that they're operating in, and how they could think that they were above complying with certain guidelines and regulations that are sort of predetermined.
There's a giant public subsidy for the big cable companies, for the big telephone companies, and they need to give some of that back. But what they end up doing is using their big power in Washington or at the state houses, Albany in New York, Sacramento in California, to force through regulations that prevent them from having to give back to local communities, and to try to take away the accountability of the public rights-of-way of land and shift it over to the FCC in Washington or to other regulatory agencies that we know nothing about and which we can't have a voice at, but the big lobbyists can.
The bills, however, were stalled in the House and Senate, but the phone companies had another plan. The phone companies tried to deregulate cable requirements, state by state. One of these states, surprisingly, was California.
And I am as upset as you are that once again the strangulation of the political process has happened and we're all in trouble because public access is almost now finished.
The state bill passed in California was known as DIVCA. DIVCA allowed cable providers to drop out of providing for studios, equipment, and training, and to provide a minimal amount of public access channels. Many bills like DIVCA were passed in 20 other states with similar results.
What happens in other parts of the United States really impacts what happens here in New York City. So if there are laws and regulations that are passed elsewhere that really hurt the First Amendment and hurt diversity of views in the media, it hurts people here in New York City and the residents of Manhattan. So we do have to take a tough stand against that and raise our voices and make sure that this doesn't happen.
And since 2005, public access representatives, along with some elected officials, have been trying to remedy what was done by the phone companies.
If we can protect and provide provisions for our colleagues and the public across the country, we're doing something excellent that is part of democracy in the digital age and community development through media. It's something that we're passionate about.
And on the public policy front, it's working together for sure to make sure that our local communities are provided for with a local voice, that there are corporations that are living up to their public interest obligations.
I want the subcommittee to know that AT&T was invited to testify at this hearing, but they told us less than a week ago that they couldn't find someone to testify. I frankly find it incredible and disappointing that a company the size and stature of AT&T can't find or won't find a suitable witness for a hearing of this important public policy issue.
The cable companies jumped on board as soon as they saw that these state laws benefited them as well.
Sacramento cut the deal with the phone company who didn't want to go through this franchising process, didn't want to help be accountable by local government on customer service or public access. So the cable industry did the same things, me too, me too. So they all got what they wanted at the expense of the people.
In some states, the phone companies agreed to pay for public access, but made them harder for people to find.
And these are the struggles that are going on all across the country. Public access being gutted, being defunded, being marginalized, being shifted to digital Siberia on cable channels, and constantly being marginalized by big media companies.
As of 2010, over 100 communities were affected by those state franchising laws, and it's estimated that more states, such as Ohio, Florida, and Georgia, will experience more closures from 2012 and onwards. Why wouldn't major phone or cable companies want to support producers like Bob Thompson or Andrew Bauman? Why were they doing this to access producers like me and Anthony?
The main issue really that we're facing every day in different ways, different battles, is really how is public land being used for private profit? And that's the essential point that we have to deal with every day. And we battle that out in Congress, at the local state houses, in local city councils, city halls, with mayors and others. And That's the essential struggle that we're facing today.
While it may seem like all hope is lost for public access, it does have an unlikely ally in this fight.
At first, I thought that sites like YouTube was going to be the death knell for community television, but it turns out not to be.
Well, I'd like to say how public access has impacted YouTube, because the whole notion of posting video was actually begun by Indie Media, which started in 1999, 4.5 years before YouTube. And that was on public access.
Because we are really on the cusp of great technological advancements, and public access is not static, it's in flux, and it advances with the technological advances.
And what people do often is they come down, learn how to do this kind of production. They put their show on the air to cable viewers all across Manhattan, more than 600,000 subscribers, and then they take that same show and they put it up on YouTube or a Blip TV or other video outlets. And so what you have is a synergistic relationship where local voices are actually getting multiplied off different platforms, which is fantastic.
As the fight for public access continues, there is one lesson that all access producers can agree on. Freedom of speech is not free. It has to be fought for.
I don't think anybody really thinks they have freedom of speech. I think people more in general have taken their freedom of speech away than the media. People just won't say things anymore. They're afraid. It's not that people aren't letting them say it. They just refuse to say it.
If public access was going to die, I would fight for it. You know, I would fight very hard to keep it and maintain it, because I think that it's a right that we have as citizens, as people that live and subscribe and have television. We have a right to do public broadcasting.
And now, the movement for public access television has gone worldwide.
Tonight we have the following stories to share with you. Angry Malawi camp residents resort to protest action.
Porque somos profesores y estamos luchando por nuestros derechos. Más que nada porque yo, por ejemplo, tengo plaza y estoy sin asignar hasta mañana.
A time for everything, and everything is just for a time. Come on, lift your spirits high.
Don't break your code now. When you're sticking to the script, and she's urging you to hit, you better fight it. Let's talk about it, yeah.
All right, Jason's going to be now the subject. Now take a look at this face right here. This is a face only Mama Figueroa would love. All right, we got to go. We got to move on.
Oh my
All right,
God.
so we're trying to get to Schralenberg.
Yeah, Schralenberg.
Schralenberg.
Avenue, or road, whatever it is. And we're trying our best.
Not to die.
Not to get lost. I mean, dying could be good.
Well, not to have a heat stroke.
But we did a great interview.
It was a great interview.
You know?
We did get a lot of good material.
Yeah, we got a lot of, a lot of great sound, I'd say, as well. I mean, that was very important. We had to hear the man's story, and it's important. I mean, we're storytellers. We got to come out even to these remote places here in Jersey and get these stories.